The sea witch and terrifying villain Ursula from The Little Mermaid has a shocking and unbelievable history. Ursula isn't just a random character created by Disney, but was inspired by a drag queen, Divine, who was well known before her demise. Divine was a famous actor in John Waters' films like The Pink Flamingos, and that means Ursula's appearance, from her makeup, sense of humour and the way she carries herself, were all to honour Divine by the playwright Howard Ashman. Divine, whose real name was Glenn Milstead, passed a year before the movie came out in 1989. So the enhancement behind Ursula's character to be more like Divine came from Howard, who grew up in a queer-dominated environment in Baltimore when Divine was a popular figure. And so when he got the job with Disney and got the chance to work on The Little Mermaid as a producer and a writer, he had the authority over how the film would go. From the beginning, there were many other inspired looks of how Ursula should appear, being the main villain and very important to how fans view the film. And that's where the first drawing of a pink mohawk and a shark tail was introduced as Ursula's image, but the production team thought it needed to improve a little bit more. So the animator Rob Minkoff jumped on the project and drew a plus-sized character with bold makeup that everyone agreed looked a lot like Divine. And immediately Howard loved this image, as he had been a fan of Divine, and also he thought the bold image of Ursula would have a big impression on kids and everyone who sat down to enjoy the film. As the character development progressed, Howard introduced some of the ways that Divine acts and growls in the film, and Ursula's musicals like Poor Unfortunate Souls. Despite being a villain, embodying Divine into Ursula was inspiring, as it taught many people that worth isn't attributed to body size, but confidence, style, and an intelligent sense of humour, because that's what Divine stood for. Interestingly, the deceased actress who voiced Ursula in The Little Mermaid, Pat Carroll, also gave life to the character, because it would have been weird to have Ursula sound any different. And Pat mentioned that she enjoyed playing Ursula, but that her inspiration, Shakespeare, helped her bring an interesting side out to the character. According to Pat, she always imagined Ursula as an ex-Shakespearean actress, and giving her a lot of energy in her voice and portrayal of the villain. When many fans of The Little Mermaid remember or see Ursula, the first thought that comes to their mind is that Ursula is an octopus, but you will be surprised to find out that she isn't exactly an octopus. And there's a popular narrative as to why Ursula has 6 tentacles rather than the usual 8. The production team was saving costs on the budget, which is true, but Pat didn't think anyone got it right, as she said, "People call her an octopus, and I'm so knowledgeable that I have to correct them and say, no, she's not an octopus, she's a squid. She has 6 tentacles instead of 8. Aside from Ursula's looks and how she grew as a sea witch, fans don't know much about her past and what made her isolated and banished from the rest. Also, Ursula was desperate to defeat King Triton through Ariel and take over the rule of the Ocean's Kingdom. And the explanation to where all of these began was later revealed in the musical version of the film. So, the big reason why Ursula wanted Triton's throne is that they were siblings and had an issue with each other in the past. Coming from a royal family, they both had equal rights to the throne, and their father ensured he shared their inheritance equally before he passed. So they both got the sea shared between them, and they were meant to rule together. And this wasn't the only thing they got. Their father also left them with his magical items, the trident for Triton, and the magic Nautilus shell for Ursula. And with how equally everything had been shared between them, there wasn't supposed to be an issue, but this was when the sea witch spirit of Ursula started to rise, as she wanted everything to herself and to use dark magic to get rid of Triton. Fortunately for Triton, he discovered this and had to banish Ursula forever without giving her any access to the throne. But then there's another surprising version of this backstory that was revealed when the musical was remade, and in this story, Triton and Ursula weren't the only children of their father, but the last siblings in a family of 8 children. And after their father passed, Ursula became greedy and got rid of all the other siblings and left Triton, who later discovered what she did and ensured that Ursula got banished. However, these versions only reveal Ursula as an outright monster with no trigger. But the crazy thing is that Ursula wasn't always a villain right before the Little Mermaid story happened with Ariel and Triton. With each of her actions in the film, some versions revealed the worst had been done to her. According to Sherry L. Smith, who reinvented a new backstory for the villain, she believes Ursula has some good that everyone needs to know. Sherry said, "Remember, for every witch you are told about, there's a goddess you've forgotten." What a treat it is to give Disney's most decadent villain her due. So, following this version, Ursula had ruled one of the 7 seas before she was part of the 7 sea witches, and they all had their own sea to rule. But Ursula's evil side started to emerge after one of the sea sisters was attacked and her throne was snatched from her. And Ursula was determined to find the person responsible, well, which brought her villain side. Ursula's villain story only gets better with time, as a different version of Poor Unfortunate Soul, A Tale of the Sea Witch by Serena Valentino tells the villain story of Ursula and how she started as a good person. And the tale starts with how Ursula was adopted by a human fisherman. So Ursula grew up among humans and didn't realize how special she was, as her magical talents took a while to develop. If you are wondering how Ursula lived with the humans for so many years, it's because she has a human form, Vanessa. But Ursula prefers to be in her tentacle shape rather than her human figure. Sadly, when she started displaying her magical powers, the humans were against her and tried to get rid of her, but her human father wouldn't let this happen, and in the process he lost his life, leaving Ursula alone in the world. And this made Ursula very sad and angry because her human father would be the first to show her true love. So Ursula couldn't forgive what they had done. From here, Ursula started to become dark, and she tried to destroy the whole human village by burning everything in it. Amid the chaos, Triton, who had been looking for Ursula, his long-lost sister, finally found her and introduced himself to her. Triton was more than happy to convince Ursula by telling her that the necklace on her neck was from their birth father. Unfortunately, the reunion between Triton and Ursula wasn't peaceful for long because problems started to arise. As Triton was always insulting and angry at the sight of Ursula, Triton would call her monstrous and ugly person without a slight provocation. And also, Triton revealed an ugly truth in one of his angry moments, saying he was the one who left Ursula to drift away at a very young age because he knew that she was going to grow up as a monster. So despite looking for Ursula and bringing her back to his kingdom, Triton tormented her daily and made her life unbearable. The queen of Triton's kingdom, Athena, was the only one who loved and cared for Ursula, and even constantly told Triton to give Ursula better treatment, as she didn't deserve that. And for a while, Ursula got to enjoy the protection of Athena until she passed, and Triton was quick to banish Ursula immediately. And you would wonder why he hated Ursula so much. Then Ursula decided to fight back by seeking help from the Odd Sisters, who are known for always interfering in matters that concern or don't concern them. And so when Ursula approached them, they offered her a deal instead to look for their sister Circe in exchange for taking the life of Triton. The funny thing is that Circe had to leave the Odd Sisters angrily because they meddled in matters that weren't called into. Ursula later became enemies with the Odd Sisters too, but this version of the story didn't end well for Ursula or give her much to live for until Disney's Little Mermaid happened. So, judging by this story of how Triton treated Ursula in the past, she didn't just wake up one day and hate humans or manipulate Ariel to get to Triton in The Little Mermaid. After her adoptive father was brutally extinguished, finding Triton, a long-lost sibling, would have been a big relief for Ursula, but she didn't know her worst fate awaited her in his kingdom. And after she got banished for nothing, it was only right for her to fight back, especially since everything she had cared about was taken from her, and she was left to live like someone with no further value. So it comes down to the fact that some versions did Ursula dirty by making her a disturbing villain with a dark mind, but some redeemed her character and justified many of her actions. But the truth is, Ursula was an important villain who set out to inspire despite some of her dangerous actions. So what do you think of Ursula's disturbing backstory? And do you find her character inspiring despite her evil ways? Share your thoughts in the comments, and thanks for watching.